Your mics are hot. Get ready to go, Andre. I'm going to let you start it off whenever you're ready. In five, four, three, two.
Race fans, the 100% IROC Series welcomes you to Rockingham for the penultimate race in the season. I'm Andre Graham Bush, joined alongside Cody Bird and, of course, Carlos Costa, the man pushing the buttons, bringing all the action to your TVs and computers. Cody, it's going to be one interesting race. We got the conditions up on screen. 75 degrees, a little bit warm. Might get a little slick out there. Partly cloudy, though, so we might see some clouds roll in, maybe get those moments of grip. And, of course, 5-mile-an-hour wind gust. That ain't going to change a whole lot. It's going to be, I think, tough for these guys out here, Cody. This is a very strange track for these cars. You know, we went to Charlotte, which was the last oval we raced at, and we saw a lot of wide open racing here, but here it's going to be a lot of off throttle time, even some braking into the corners, and it seems like these guys have been spending this entire practice session just trying to get a feel for the car.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I found very interesting, it's going to be the tire wear today. I don't think obviously fuel is going to be an issue, but I think more so today it's going to be the tire wear more than anything. These guys are going to want to get tires as soon as possible when they know that they can make it on fuel, just because of how much this track is going to eat the tires, Andre.
Yeah, it's definitely going to wear away at the tires. There's a lot of banking here, but it is an old surface, and that kind of plays into how much tire wear we're going to see. And again, remember, in this series, you cannot pit under yellow for tires. You can pit under yellow to get damage repaired, but that's about it. So if these guys decide that, hey, it might be worth it to get fresh tires, they're going to have to do that under green. They're going to have to hope that cautions don't come out and kind of trap them a lap down, because I believe with how short this track is, pitting for tires may wind up putting you a lap down. So kind of a gamble. It'll be interesting to see. A little bit longer race, I would say, than what we've had so far. 100 laps here at Rockingham. And again, the field being set by, I think, the inverse of last week's results. So a few more cars this week, I would say, than last week, though, because so far I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cars so far, which I believe a 13-car field was the full roster. So only missing one thus far, and that is Kevin Steele, who will not be in the event. He, I believe he's away from home. He said that he thought about firing up his laptop, but thought better about trying to race with a mouse. I told him, just install some force feedback on the mouse and get out here. But apparently that advice went unheeded. He's watching from the sidelines, Cody.
Yeah. Some may say he's a little shook with the competition here, Andre, just because of how tough this competition has been so far. Obviously, we've seen Jonathan Delaney win the first two races, and there's a familiar name at the top of the board here. Jonathan Delaney, fastest in practice so far. So is he going to go 3 for 3 and go for the sweep of all 4 races so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's not super surprising to see John up at the top of the leaderboard. He does have some pretty close competition, though. He's only a couple hundredths faster than Robert Miller, a little bit faster than Adam Benefiel, and Bryson Nixonbot not far behind either. I mean, if you look at these lap times, everybody is just barely separated by anything at all. So I think having speed is good. That's going to help John get out front. He's going to have some clear track, I'd imagine, if he can find his way up front. But remember, we are inverting last week's field, and he's finished first place last week, so he's going to be starting in the back. He's got some cars to work through, and unlike Charlotte and unlike the road courses, I think passing here is going to be more difficult, because what we're going to see is a lot of one groove racing. I think there's one fast line, and that's around the bottom, and I don't think that's going to change too much throughout the course of this race. So he's going to have to be patient, which, we've watched Jonathan Delaney race enough the 100% Cup Series to know that patience isn't exactly his forte, but who knows? Either way, that's all to say that he's got a fast car. He's a very good driver, but I wouldn't say anything is really said and done yet. I don't think this race is really in the hands of anybody. As long as this field stays together, it really could be anybody's game with as close as these lap times have been.
Yeah. Absolutely, Andre. And something else I just find interesting so far is the 100% champion from 2021, Adam Benefiel. He really hasn't shown much in these opening couple races to really show that he's capable of winning this championship. But there's still 2 races left, 2 ovals, both that will eat your tires as quick as possible. So it's going to be interesting to see if these two tracks are going to push them up the standing list here, Andre.
Yeah, it will be interesting for sure. I think all of these guys are kind of in a precarious point situation when you think about it, because Jonathan Delaney has won the first two races. He's had no competition really in those events, and those two wins have gotten him a pretty comfortable points cushion, because not only did he win, but of course he led laps. So that's just points on top of points, and in such a short series, securing points that quickly is pretty much key. At this point, unless something disastrous happens, like he gets wrecked out of the race and DNFs, it's going to be tough for these guys to come back and try to get ahead of him in points. So I think these guys are all going to be a little bit desperate, I would say, to lead laps and get as many points as they can to try and combat Delaney. But it'll be fun to watch for sure. This track alone is fun enough. Then you take cars that weren't really built for it, that are kind of sliding around, kind of hard to control, and then you add in the point that these drivers are going to be trying to pick up every point they can, and what you got is a really interesting race, I would hope. But they are rolling off the grid. It is Craig Fryer alongside David Stringle making up row 1. Row 2, there doesn't appear to be anybody in row 2 except for Robert Miller. I believe it's supposed to be Cameron Stone. No, Timothy Latham is going to pull up to row 2. So row 2 is going to be Latham and Miller. Behind him, you've got Stanley and Stone. The next row back is Joe Stafford, Bryson Hicksonbaugh. Then you've got Adam Benefiel and Alex Van de Sant rounding out the field. Trying to go from last to first, it's going to be Jonathan Delaney. He did it last week. See if he can do it again this week. So there you know where your favorite driver is starting from if you're watching at home. And here we go, Cody. Pace car is about to pull off the track. Lights are off, I believe. And it's going to make that sharp left-hander, very sharp left-hander. That pit road's way down there. Where's Craig Fryer going to start the field? He's going to wait until that green flag is waved, and actually it's Stringle on the outside who's going to beat him to the line. Fryer with an abysmal start. He's plummeting through the grid. Robert Miller making a move on the outside. In the meantime, Timothy Latham makes a move on the inside, and Stone even gets around him. So from the very inside of row 1 all the way back to 5th, now almost falling to 6th, as Bryson Hicksonbaugh is on the outside trying to make something happen. A lot of these cars getting a little bit squirrely on the first lap, Cody.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the tire wear already kicking in. I know these are fresh tires, but as you mentioned in the pre-race, that this track is hot, and it's going to make this track slick for all these drivers, as you already see passing going on, people trying to get those positions as early as possible to make sure that when it comes down to the very end of this, they have position, as you see Cameron Stone making a move on Robert Miller for second.
Yeah, here comes Cameron on the bottom. Stringle is one of those cars that in the first two races we've seen a lot of speed out of. He had a really impressive run at Charlotte, and he had a really impressive run going for him at the road course there at Lime Rock, but unfortunately neither of those runs finished the way that we would have expected. He had some bad luck in both of those races, found himself with a pretty poor finishing position. Really, realistically, he's not looking good in terms of points, but if he can get a win and redeem himself, that'd be something. So he's probably driving pretty motivated. But going back to the handling, Cody, one thing I want to point out as well is maybe not so much the tire wear, maybe not so much the heat, but this track is rough. You know, with as old as this surface is, there are bumps everywhere. You can see these cars going through the corner, and they're getting tossed around like a ship on the ocean. It's insane. And that's because these supercars, these V8 supercars here, they have very heightened suspension. You know, they don't suck down to the track like a stock car would. This is kind of like back in the old Gen 4 days of NASCAR, where the cars were not sealed to the track. They were lifted up quite a bit. And so these cars, with how much range of motion they have on the shocks and on the limiters there, they get thrown around by these bumps, and it's really affecting them going into the corner as Robert Miller makes a move to the lead with the help of Cameron Stone. A good shot. Didn't really expect to see any bump drafting here at Rockingham, but there it was. Cameron Stone securely up into second. Bryson Hicksonbaugh now third. It almost looks, Cody, like the draft is actually playing a bit of a factor here, because Stringle got trapped on the bottom by himself, and he dropped back a few positions.
Yeah, this is definitely not something these drivers expected in this race, just with how much off throttle time there is. As you can see that they were almost 3 wide there going for the lead, but with this draft, I mean, it's providing more great racing that we've already seen in the first 2 weeks, Andre, and I don't know if this is sustainable for 100 laps, but if they're able to do this once again, it will really go to show that these are the best drivers on the server.
And here we have Cameron Stone and Bryson Hicksonbaugh. Once upon a time, these two were teammates at high side. Now they're working together again to take the 1 and 2 positions. But I think they're both playing a bit of a game of risk versus reward, Cody, because they're running the high line, which is something that not a lot of these drivers are doing, at least not to the extent that they are. And you can see these cars getting thrown around, the suspension's getting upset. Cameron Stone himself has almost spun out 3 or 4 times that I've watched where he's had to counter steer and gotten really sideways. And that's because the outside of this track is not only a little bit rougher and a little bit bumpier, but it's also got less grip. There's not as much rubber up there. So you can find speed, obviously. Cameron Stone and Bryson Hicksonbaugh found it up there, but I think it comes at a bit of a risk because it is clearly not the more stable of the 2 lines.
Absolutely not. That the
Latham scrapes the wall. Not to cut you off there, Cody, but Latham actually is one of the first drivers to make a significant bobble. He got thrown around by a bump and actually tried to correct the car, and when he corrected the car, it just kind of went right up to the outside safer barrier, and unfortunately got him a little bit of damage there as he battles for 3rd place. But we do have a battle for the lead. Here we go. Cameron Stone down to the bottom, Bryson Hicksonbaugh on top, and here's where we're going to find out, Cody, which lane is dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of looked like Bryson Hicksonbaugh threw a slide job on Cameron Stone there for the lead, which it wasn't something I was expecting here, but it seemed to have paid off as Bryson Hicksonbaugh to the lead now. And it looks like he's starting to pull away from Cameron Stone here a little as we enter lap 12.
Yeah, he is pulling away a little bit. Now, I should mention, this is one of Bryson's favorite tracks, just in general. He absolutely adores this track whenever he's driving a stock car. He adores it in any type of vehicle. Obviously, he's a bit of an old school NASCAR fan, and this track is kind of iconic to classic NASCAR. And as a result, Bryson has turned an inordinate amount of laps here. I would say he's probably one of the most experienced drivers when it comes to Rockingham. Running races against the AI here, running exhibition races here, among other things. And on top of just the time clocked in the old NASCAR video games and as well. I mean, he plays those a lot as well. So he knows the track like the back of his hand. He's a very talented driver. And this race so far seems to be going his way as he is going to get some points for leading laps. And as you mentioned, Cody, he is starting to pull away from Cameron Stone. And this is the first time all race long. It took until about lap 12 that we've seen the leaders start to pull away. Timothy Latham is in 3rd. Now he's still running the high line, whereas our leaders have migrated down to the bottom. And Latham is actually slowly closing in. So I think that high line is proving to be faster, but again, less stable. That's why these drivers in front of him move to the bottom. They know it's not as fast, but it is more comfortable. The car's a little bit easier to control down there. So until they absolutely have to, that's where they're going to stay. Latham trying to hunt them down, and we got a battle for 4th here, Cody, as Craig Fryer is trying to make the move on Robert Miller. But Robert's running that middle line, which is the line we haven't seen too many drivers really run. They've either been all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top. Miller's run that middle lane, and so far it has worked for him to hold on to P4 as Stringle now makes a move on Craig Fryer. And here comes Jonathan Delaney. We haven't talked about him all race long here, Cody, but here he is moving up into P6, now trying to get P5.
Something with Jonathan Delaney. I thought early on he would be making the moves to get to the front, but you have to be curious if he was trying to save his tires towards the middle portion of this race to get up there and potentially mount a challenge to Bryson Hicksonbaugh. And that's somebody else, as we mentioned, Bryson Hicksonbaugh leading laps here. From what I can remember, these are his first laps led this year in IROC. Now, we all know his tendency of finishing 4th, Andre, but you have to be wondering if he's trying to make that mount to win an IROC championship here in the 2nd season of it to really show why he is one of the best drivers on iRacing. But you also have to wonder is if he's using up his tires early on, and it's going to end up causing later in the race for him to fall back.
Well, and you know, it's hard for me to say who's using their tires up more than the next guy because at most tracks, the bottom lane is the lane that's going to kind of scuff the tires up a little bit more because you're turning tighter. You know, you're cranking on that wheel, you're sliding those front tires, and it's wearing away at them every single time. Whereas if you take the outside or the middle lane, you're not cranking on the wheel, you're not sliding them as much. And even though it's a longer radius around the track, it is putting less wear and tear on those Goodyear tires. So at this track, I can't say that that's necessarily the case because the top is really rough, way more rough than the bottom. And even though they're taking a wider angle and they're, you know, keeping their tire temps cooler by running the top line, they could just be negating any benefit they'd have by driving over these bumps and constantly sliding around. I don't really know. It's going to be interesting. But I think the other thing that factors into Delaney taking this long to get through the field, again, is just how difficult it is to pass. Look at this. We've had Robert Miller, Van de Sant, and Timothy Latham engaged in this battle for pretty much the majority of the race. None of these guys have gotten away from one another. And passing, as we've seen numerous times, is really difficult. You almost have to have a little bit of help to make a pass. If you try to do it on your own, you're maybe not going to make very much progress, as Robert Miller nearly puts the bumper to Latham. I don't think there was contact. It was just really, really close. Miller trying to pick up every position he can in that number 6 machine down to the bottom, but again, just not as much momentum. You got to pinch the car a lot to run the bottom. And when they get on the straightaways, there goes Van de Sant and Latham, just with that added momentum they carried out of the turn, and it helps them every single time. All this is going on, and look at the lead that Bryson Hixenbaugh has attained over the last few laps, up to 1.5 seconds last time they crossed the line, and then about another 0.6 back to Timothy Latham. So a lot of speed out of Bryson Hixenbaugh, and I think at this point, the drivers are looking at him in that 14 machine and they're saying that is the car to beat. And Cameron Stone, he's probably thinking, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing different here? Because really, he's following in the tire tracks of the leader. He's emulating his line just about 1 for 1. And I think the only difference is that Bryson is driving it a little bit harder, and that's what's allowing them to get that lead. But you mentioned it earlier, Cody, as Jonathan Delaney gets sideways, dropping a position as a result. The harder they drive, the more they're using their tires, Cody. So what do you think? Does Bryson have to pay a bit of a debt later on for driving this hard?
Going to be interesting to see what happens later on in the race. You may think maybe he pits a little earlier than the other guys for fresh tires, just so that way he gets on a different strategy. Maybe early on in the next run, save his tires a little more, so that way at the very end he has that long run speed. I couldn't think of that word there for a second, Andre, but you have to start wondering if he's going to go into some type of conservation mode with a 2.5 second gap at the line. As you can see, the battle for third place is still battling on between Robert Miller and Timothy Latham as we close in on lap 27 of this race.
And, we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, patience was not Delaney's forte. So when he sees two cars side by side blocking both possible lines, you got to imagine he's getting a little bit frustrated. And he did put the bumper to Latham. He was shoving him down that straightaway and then through the tri-oval. And he's trying to make something happen on the outside because this race obviously is not that lengthy, 100 laps. And every lap that goes by, he's watching Bryson get further and further away, as we're just a little past a quarter complete in this event, as our producer pointed out. So if Delaney's going to make anything happen, it's got to happen now, and he does successfully move up to third. Now he's got his sights set on Cameron Stone. But if there was ever going to be a roadblock between Delaney and the leader, the roadblock he did not want to see is Cameron Stone, because let me tell you, these two drivers, not too fond of one another. They've had a bit of a falling out. Jonathan Delaney was scheduled to drive for Cameron Stone's team on 100% Cup Series, and then there was some infighting, trouble in paradise. Delaney ended up being fired before the season even began, and these two have had their fair share of squabbles on track. So now that they're bumper to bumper, and Delaney is going to be desperate to get around Stone, this is going to be something to watch.
Absolutely, Andre. And something else that we haven't talked about is Alex Van de Sant. He's right behind this group, and he's just as hungry as the rest of these guys to get a win, finishing second to Jonathan Delaney twice already. So he wants that win as much as the next guy, and he's going to do everything possible to finish ahead of him to try to reclaim some points here before the last race of the season. As you can see him looking to make a pass on Cameron Stone for third, as Jonathan Delaney successfully got around Cameron Stone.
Yeah, John was able to secure second place on the outside. Van de Sant really trying to lunge it down the inside. A little bit of contact there as he throws a bit of a late move on Cameron Stone. Not sure how Cameron's going to feel about that one. But now I think the question is, sounds like we have issues. Producer Joe Stafford sounds like I might have got involved in a little bit of a scuffle there. He does have a little bit of damage, and he is last place on the board currently. He went from 8th to 13th. So something must have occurred with Joe. But as I was saying about John here, the question is, can he make up this 3-second gap on his own? I mean, that's a pretty big margin between them. We know Delaney may be a little bit quicker, but I don't know, Cody. It's tough to tell. As we do have a 3-wide TV replay, we're going to throw it up on screen, maybe see what happened with Joe Stafford. It's actually a little bit before the Joe Stafford incident. You can see there goes Adam Benefiel with a little bit of contact to Fryer, and he gets sideways down on that yellow line. He's able to correct it. That was a really good save, but then here comes Stafford on the outside, and Fryer's able to avoid contact with Stringle and Stafford. And then we focus in on the number 3, and I'm assuming something's going to happen coming up here. Yeah, just a bit of a wall tap. Well, I say tap, but man, Cody, he gave that wall an absolute slam.
Yeah, that was a very hard hit. Yep, and he has gone to the garage here for this race to hopefully get that car repaired and come back out. But you were mentioning a tap of the wall. I've been there, Andre. Oh, and he's coming back out. But I've been in that position where I've hit that wall, and I can tell you that was no tap, Andre. That wall comes up fast, and when you hit it, it hurts. Pretty good there. As you can see at the bottom of the screen right now, Jonathan Delaney is running faster laps than Bryson Hexenball, Andre.
He is running a little bit faster, not by much, just by a little bit. But, every lap he just clicks off that's a little bit quicker. That is progress. And I should mention, when you see Joe Stafford come out of the corner and you look at it on television, it doesn't do that corner justice. He hit that wall as hard as he did because when you come out of turn 2, that angle is actually a little bit tighter than most ovals. If you look at the track map, turns 1 and 2 are a much tighter radius, and as you come out, the momentum kind of slings you out. Like the G-forces want to push you towards that wall, and that wall is real close because it's not a straightaway. It's actually a bit of an angle, similar to Darlington, but it slings you out towards that wall, and it's very hard to subvert that. Like once the motions are in action, you're not going to stop that car. It's going right up to those walls. And again, this was a track I believe that was obviously predating the safer barriers. So then when they added the safer barrier, you had this track that was pretty widthy, pretty wide, and now you've got a track that's a little bit more narrow, and that just makes it even more difficult to navigate. So that turn 2 wall, I would not be surprised if we see a few more cars try to knock it down later on.
Oh, and we're getting word that Bryson's actually clutching here. So I don't know if he's trying to save some fuel, starting to overheat, or just trying to save those tires. I'm not, to be perfectly honest with you, Andre, I'm not sure if clutching really has much to do with the tires to help save them. But then again, I'm also not in the series, so yeah, so I wouldn't know what these guys are necessarily doing to save their tires, but you have to start wondering here, Andre, if their tires are starting to get really, really hot, and these guys are starting to slip and slide, as we saw the Joe Stafford hit the wall. So that may be something that's coming into play here.
I absolutely agree. And one thing that I'm noticing here as well is if Bryson is actually conserving and he's trying to save fuel, which it really seems like he is, he's still just as fast, if not a little bit quicker than Jonathan Delaney, because that gap has been hovering right around 3.3 seconds for a long time now. Sometimes it goes up to 3.4, sometimes it shrinks down to 3.2, but overall it tends to even out right there at 3.3. And they're kind of trading off lap time. Sometimes John's faster, sometimes Bryson's faster, but overall very similar lap times. And look at this, Alex Van de Sant trying to make a move on Delaney. That is going to help Bryson even more, because if he gets battling with that number 4 car, that's going to slow both of them down. That's going to allow Bryson to take a breather, save even more fuel if need be, and still be able to keep the gap that he's built up. So right now, card's definitely in Bryson's favor, but we've seen these races look like they're going to go one way and then immediately pull a 180 and all chaos breaks loose, Cody. I mean, the race last week at Lime Rock, could any of us predicted the way that race went?
I don't think so, no. I mean, we were immediately, as soon as the first caution came out, just because we're not used to cautions at road courses, we knew it was going to throw a wrench into how the race was going to play out. And something else to take into factor here, I mentioned Adam Benefiel earlier in the race. He's up to 4th place and closing in on Jonathan Delaney and Alex Van de Sant. So he's just hanging in there, biding his time, hoping for something to happen, and he's a champion in 100% Cup Series for a reason. And this is why, Andre.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Benefiel is a very talented driver. He was a former Coke Series driver for the NASCAR side of iRacing, and still involved heavily with Team Conti. He is the crew chief for Conti, and he knows his way around a track, that's for sure. And he's also a very smart driver. That's one thing about Benefiel. Everything he does is calculated. You know, there are your drivers like Delaney, who he's very fast, but everything he tends to do is kind of on impulse. And then you've got your Adam Benefields. And when you look at the way he drives, you know, you can safely say everything he does is pre-planned. If he puts the bumper to somebody, he's been planning on putting that bumper to that car for the last 10 laps. If he changes his line, he's doing that for a reason. If he has a certain pit strategy, it's for a reason. Nothing is on a whim with this guy. It's all planned out. And right here, this I think is a good game plan. He's got himself in fourth. That's a pretty good point state on its own, but he knows he's got two aggressive drivers in front of him in Van de Sant and Delaney. And he knows that if these guys get battling it out, he's in the catbird seat and he could very well put himself in position to try to get up to the leader, as all three of these cars are actually starting to close in on Hixenbaugh just a little bit. The gap has not shrunk a lot, but it has diminished by a couple tenths. So even with these guys battling, they're closing in, and Benefiel putting himself in a very smart position.
Absolutely, Andre. And something else to take into consideration here is what will Adam Benefiel do if he gets to the back bumper of Bryson Hixenbaugh? We saw early on in the season last year for 100%. He was not afraid to use that bumper. And, you know, him and Jonathan Delaney do have history dating back to last year. So is that something else that he takes into factor? I mean, Adam Benefiel is the wild card right now, not really being up in that top portion of points, especially after a bad showing at Lime Rock. So he could be the ultimate wild card that plays a factor in how the championship ends up getting decided, Andre, as Timothy Latham is in the pits.
Yeah, looks like Latham is going to be among the first takers down pit road, splitting the race in half, lap 50 out of 100. And I would expect to see some more drivers follow suit. Obviously, in a race like this, the drivers tend to split it right in half. Maybe it's a psychological thing where it's just like, okay, one half now, one half later, rather than going an extra 10 laps. But as I'm watching the number 15 car come down pit road, he is taking tires. The car's gone up on the jack stand and it's staying there for a substantial amount of time. So that's going to be a 4-tire stop. And I would imagine while he's taking those 4 tires, he's got to get that thing fueled up because, I mean, hey, you're already spending the time getting tires. Get that fuel in there. Make sure you can make it to the end. The question now is who are the next takers? And it sounds like it's going to be Van de Sant and Miller making their way down pit road here on lap 52. I'm assuming it's going to be a similar story, 4 tires and fuel. And the rest of these drivers on track just trying to maybe wait a little bit longer as Stafford, Benefiel, Delaney, and Hixenbaugh continue to turn laps.
And you start to wonder how much is this going to play a factor, because we've seen this at tracks where the tire wear is so significant. The early pit stops end up getting a driver to the lead early on. And from what I can see, Bryson Hixenbaugh coming down to pit right now, so he knew his window was now to pit in order to, as the rest of the lead lap cars look like they're coming down pit road as well. Andre?
It could play a major factor, Cody, because I'm looking at the lap time records for Bryson Hixenbaugh, who is coming down pit road. His fast lap of the race was on lap 2. That was a 22.842. And his last lap before he pitted was a 24 flat. So he has lost 1.2 seconds. And that is significant. That is incredibly significant. If he comes in 3 laps later than somebody who's got fresh tires, that's losing a little over 3 seconds, nearly 4. So with some of these guys that came in sooner, they might find themselves cycling in either right on his bumper or possibly out front. Here comes Bryson in the 14 out of pit road. Question is, where are the cars in relation to him? How's he going to cycle out?
And as you can see also on the timing and scoring, Bryson's currently a lap down to Cameron Stone and Stringle. So this is going to play a factor, because if a caution comes out now, that can throw this whole race up on its head, and all these guys that are a lap down could be stuck a lap down, and that's not something these guys, I'm sure, had game plan going into tonight, Andre. Being a lap down a little over halfway through this race, that's a lot of time to make up if you have to race your way back to the lead lap. And I don't think these guys really want to, as you see Jonathan Delaney closing in on the back bumper of Bryson Hixenball.
Yeah, I was going to mention John actually had a much better pit stop than the 14 team. He cycled out pretty much right on the bumper of the 14, so that 3-second gap that he had on track prior to pitting, that has been completely negated. They are now bumper to bumper. Jonathan Delaney trying to side draft Bryson Hixenbach coming into the corner. Bryson's having none of it. He's pinching him down to that yellow line, and he's going to reclaim the position. But that was an aggressive side draft attempt there, Cody. I mean, he got right on the quarter panel. Both cars got a little bit unsettled. I don't think John's playing around here. I think he wants around this 14, and he knows that he's got to use these fresh tires while they're good.
Absolutely. And we mentioned, as you see, Jonathan Delaney put the bumper to the back of Bryson Hixenball. These drivers have history as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And you may remember from the championship race a little over 3 months ago how that played out, where Bryson Hixenball and Jonathan Delaney did end up getting into each other. So you have to wonder if Jonathan Delaney has a short memory of that incident. But it's more interesting to see that a guy like Alex Van de Sant, who did pit a lap earlier than these two, did cycle back out into what is currently P4. Once Cameron Stone does pit, will be P3. But that it's just interesting to see how these tires strategies are playing out, Andre, and who's going to have the right call by the end of this race.
And for the viewers at home, this battle between Bryson and Delaney is essentially for the lead. Once Cameron Stone pits, he's lost so much time on these old tires, he will cycle out behind them inevitably. So this is essentially the battle for the lead, barring a caution coming out. And even then, they're about to unlap themselves, as here they come up on Cameron Stone in the number 13 machine. They are going to effortlessly work their way around him on the bottom. So now they are on the lead lap. Even if a caution were to come out at this point, they are still secure in their lead lap positions. The battle is essentially on from this point. The bumper again goes to Delaney. And I'll tell you what, Cody, Bryson's getting really aggressive with these blocks. And it does not surprise me, because Bryson, he's not the most aggressive driver in the world, but you mentioned the history these two guys have. And it's really not much of a surprise that even a relatively tame and calm driver like Bryson is getting a little bit aggressive with these blocks.
Absolutely, and it seemed like halfway through the year last year with the battle between them, as Jonathan Delaney goes for the lead, but it seemed contact.
He gets into the quarter panel of Bryson, and Bryson turns him. Bryson slams him into the inside wall, and no caution yet. Delaney sliding back up towards that outside safer barrier. There's the yellow flag right there, and a ton of damage to the number 4. There is no doubt in my mind that was a retaliatory move. However, I can't say it was unwarranted. Delaney really slid up into the quarter panel, nearly wrecked Bryson. Went out of the corner. Bryson said, all right, you took the gloves off. Let's fight. And unfortunately for Delaney, he came out the loser in that situation. Let's take a look at the 3-wide TV replay. And here you can see coming out of the corner, Bryson comes down a lane or two and just clobbers the number 4. We'll take another look at that passenger side. Luckily, it was a passenger side, so he should be all right. Hit like that on the driver's side, that hurts. But passenger side, you get a little bit of a cushion. But let's take a look at, as we take another look at this, let's take a look at what prefaced that, what led to that. Because coming through the corner, Delaney really sent it hard, on the inside, and without the telemetry, I couldn't tell you whether or not the contact to Bryson's quarter panel was intentional or not, but he did slide up. Intentional or not, he slid up, and then he actually came up for a second tap right there. So, yeah, Bryson not retaliating for one hit or two, but actually nearly 3 hits, and then coming through the turn. Yeah, you can see the 4 is just angled up towards that outside wall. He was on a one-way track to Bryson's quarter panel. And Bryson was able to save it. Very good piece of driving right there. And then after he saves it, he says, all right, I've had enough of you. Goodbye.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to explain it. And right before that contact, I was just about to say how no driver I've ever seen get into Bryson's mind and make him so aggressive. Jonathan Delaney's been really the first driver I've ever seen do it. And it's going to show Bryson's not taking any of John's antics this coming year.
Absolutely. And as our producer is pointing out, we do have drivers that are going to be trapped a lap down as a result of what has gone on. Some of those drivers had actually not pitted or they had pitted, but they were still a lap down. So it's going to be interesting as Jonathan Delaney makes his way down to get some damage fixed, as well as Joe Stafford, and looks like Stringle also coming down pit road for some damage. I don't know where he got damaged, but he's going to be parking his car in his stall for a moment. And these guys getting that all sorted out. Cameron Stone's going to be tail end of the field here. And let's see, where is Cameron Stone being scored? I don't think my timing and scoring is accurate because it is actually showing Cameron Stone still in the lead, which actually that may be accurate. Did Cameron ever come down pit road, Cody?
Not from what I saw. I don't know if our timing and scoring based off the laps completed, with caution laps not counting, is playing a factor into this, but I never saw him come down pit road. Granted, there was some highly exciting moments here, so if we missed that, apologies to people who may be watching, but
you know what? I've been a bit of a fool here, Cody. Yeah, of course he didn't pit. That's why we have cars laps down. That's why we have David Stringle, Joe Stafford, some of these guys one lap down. It looks like they're getting a waiver round of some sort as they're now being scored on the lead lap. But that would be why, because Cameron Stone is not pitted, which actually puts Cameron in a bit of a predicament now because he's got old tires. He's probably a little bit light in the fuel tank, and he's going to have to pit under green. He can't do that during this yellow flag stop. So he's kind of at a huge disadvantage unless he can get another. If he can pit under green, somehow get back on the lead lap, and then have a caution come out, that's essentially what he would need at this point, because these old tires are going to be slowing him down something fierce. And John Delaney coming from the back on this restart, he's going to be restarting, it looks like P9 if the timing and scoring is to be believed. And man, oh man, I'm not sure if he can do it again with the damage that he has. John did get quite a bit of body work damage from that incident, but we'll have to wait and see. All I know is there's one driver really hoping that he doesn't get up through the field. That is Bryson, because I'm thinking if these two find each other on the track, there's going to be more fireworks than the 4th of July.
Yeah, absolutely. As we go 1 to green, it looks like timing and scoring may be a little incorrect here, as Jonathan Delaney is currently shown ahead of Bryson Hicksonball on track. Not saying that he is behind Jonathan Delaney. Sorry, had to clarify that. But it just, as of this moment, looks like, based off of how the caution came out and such, that this field is going to be a little topsy-turvy here as we close in on about lap 65 as we get closer to the end, Andre.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this running order. We did have an extended caution to reorganize the grid, and I'm not sure what the criteria was there or what the idea is behind shuffling these guys around, but you're right. Bryson Hicksonbaugh is behind John on track. They're on the same lap. So while my timing and scoring hasn't updated, I know that John is currently ahead. Pace car pulls off to the left. It's going to be Cameron Stone on the old tires, leading him to the stripe, wasting no time, getting on the loud pedal. Joe Stafford is going to be, I believe, one lap down. He started on the outside there, so he's going to fall through the grid a little bit as Jonathan Delaney gets side by side with him. Cameron Stone building a comfortable gap through turns 1 and 2. And actually, it would seem Cameron Stone has fresh tires. I'm not sure when he pitted. We must have missed that, but his lap times are indicating there's no way he's doing that on 64 lap old tires. So again, this race has kind of been turned on its head. Bryson Hicksonbaugh, they're in, I believe, second or third place. I apologize. No, Jonathan Delaney is being scored a lap down, Cody. I don't know what's going on with his timing and scoring. It's all over the place. It was showing John on the lead lap. Now he's shown a lap down. So John is actually just racing for his lap back. Bryson is second place. Cameron Stone leads the way. And Alex Van de Sant also on the lead lap. Benefiel behind him on the lead lap. Timothy Latham, Robert Miller, Craig Fryer, Marshall Stanley. And then we have the lap down drivers. Jonathan Delaney, 1 lap down. Joe Stafford, also 1 lap. David Stringle, and he's rounding out the field. But yeah, what a turn of events here, Cody.
Absolutely. Apologies for all the confusion there as we got back under green with the lap down cars in the mix. But from what I understand, when John got turned, Cameron Stone did get back by him before the caution came out, which resulted in him being a lap down. Even though caution laps do not count, he will have to race for his lap back, and he is putting pressure on Cameron Stone. But it's interesting to see how Cam's going to hold on this time around with Bryson, as last time Bryson wasted no time getting around Cameron. So is Bryson going to be able to get to the back bumper here and make a pass quick? Or is it going to be... Oh, there's an issue behind. Stafford again looks like he got into the wall. Once again. We're gonna have to find a replay on that one. But man, Andre, this race is getting exciting here with a little over 30 to go.
It's definitely getting exciting. I would imagine that issue with Stafford is kind of stemming from his initial damage when he hit the wall. Coming out of the corner right there, he's side by side, and oh no! No, it was actually, I believe, Fryer who made a little bit of contact and put him in the outside wall again. So another instance of the number 3 finding its way to the outside wall there, but this time at no fault of his own, just kind of a victim.
Absolutely, and it's unfortunate because he really did have a really good showing last week and looked like he was building some momentum, as you heard his interview, going into Rockingham in Atlanta to finish out the year. But as you can see, Bryson Hicksonball trying to get around the lap down car of Jonathan Delaney here so he can start mounting a run at Cameron Stone. So you'll have to wonder if retaliation is in the back of Jonathan Delaney's head here as Bryson Hicksonball tries to make a pass.
Well, he may be retaliating, but I don't think it's in the way that we're thinking. Right now, I think John knows he's in a situation where he's pretty much out of the running. We're on lap 72 out of 100. He's a lap down. He's not going to make that up under green. He's going to have to hope for another caution, which, given we've only had one in the span of 72 laps, isn't very likely. What he's thinking about right now is, well, Bryson wrecked me. Now I don't want him to win the race. So what he may do is he might actually slow down his pace a little bit, block Bryson's lines, and just keep him behind him. And that's exactly what Cameron Stone is hoping is going to happen, as he is pulling out to a little bit of a lead. We know Stone has never had the car to beat, maybe not the best setup, but he has been competitive. And with this battle between the 14 and the 4, that is allowing him to really use these fresh tires, set the pace, get that clean air, and lead some laps.
Absolutely, Andre. And this method that Jonathan Delaney's using brings me back to Homestead in 2020 with Chase Elliott, and I believe it was Joey Logano that allowed Denny Hamlin to pull away, and Chase couldn't close in. Chase had the faster car, but with the way that the arrow worked, it never allowed Chase Elliott to get up there. And you have to wonder if Jonathan Delaney's thinking the same thing here.
It absolutely could be. And, you know, Delaney can kind of afford to toy with the field a little bit because, again, he's got a pretty decent points cushion, winning the first 2 races, leading laps in the first 2 races, and leading laps here, I believe. Actually, no, he's never led a lap in this race, so he's not getting the bonus points there, but he does have a pretty good point situation going into tonight. So he can kind of afford to just say, all right, I'm going to try to keep Bryson from winning this race, as Bryson does get side by side repeatedly, but that outside line just proving to be a little bit too strong, and he's able to kind of hold off those attacks from down below. One thing that may play a factor into this is the number 16, Alex Van de Sant. He has been really on the move here, trying to get around Bryson now. And this is a driver who, you know, he sees these 2 drivers having their squabble, and he's like, you know what? That's your business, but right now I'm trying to get to the front. So he doesn't care about playing these games that Bryson and Delaney are playing. All he cares about is getting up front, and I think he might try to do that by any means necessary.
Absolutely. And something else to take in consideration here with Jonathan Delaney's bad day, that points gap between the 2 of them is close. So is Alex going to be racing for a championship here, just letting them settle what they have, kind of giving them their gap so that way he can potentially move into the top place of the standings? Or is he going to go for this win, really get that points lead going into Atlanta? But we're closing down here now, Andre, and you have to start wondering, are tempers going to start flaring for Bryson Hicksonball to get around Jonathan Delaney, because we're a little over 20 laps to go.
And that's a good point. Another thing to think about, if you're looking at this from a points perspective, if you're Alex Van de Sant, right now you don't want a yellow flag because Jonathan Delaney is pretty much locked into 9th place. There's nothing he can do under green to escape that position, and that's a pretty bad points day, like you mentioned. If he gets a caution, however, he is the first car 1 lap down. He's going to be the free pass candidate, and he's going to be able to potentially pass some cars under green, make up some of those points. So Van de Sant might actually take it a little easy here. Rather than being aggressive, maybe he goes the other way. I mean, he's got choices here. But the other option to consider is that he takes it easy, tries to make sure that nobody around him wrecks, that he's not putting himself in any danger, he's not putting the competition in any danger. That way, it stays green. John's locked in ninth place, and Van de Sant has a pretty good point stay here in third, possibly second if he can get around Bryson.
Absolutely. If we have to interview Alex with a second place again, he may lose it too, Andre. Back-to-back second place finishes. But at the same point, as you can see, there's a battle for fourth going on battle for third as Adam Benefield's closing in on the back of Alex Van de Sant here. And as we mentioned that, Bryson Hixenbaugh and Jonathan Delaney are closing in on the back bumper of Cameron Stone.
And we saw this on the first run there in the first stint. Cameron Stone was very fast on the short run, had a lot of speed. But then as the run went on, the tires started to wear a little bit. It seemed like he was just wearing out those tires quicker than the rest of the competition. And now we're seeing that all over again, Cody. He had about a 7/10 of a second lead. Now that's gone because Jonathan Delaney is actually going to get side by side to his outside, trying to unlap himself. And Bryson is also not far behind in tow. Then you look behind Bryson, and again, it's only a couple car lengths before you find Adam Benefiel and Alex Van de Sant battling it between themselves. So really, at this point, it is anybody's game up front. This is some very, very close racing, but Cameron Stone has a whole handful behind him that he's going to have to try to defend against.
As we all know, Cameron Stone does have the capabilities being a 2020 Cup Series champion, or 100% Cup Series champion. And he will do everything possible to get a race win, as we saw at Phoenix in 2020. But at the same point, you got to think Bryson Hixenbaugh's led a majority of this race. He wants that win. He wants to show that he just doesn't lead laps. He can win a race as well. As you see, a battle for third is still heating up, as it looks like Adam Benefield's going to get Alex Van de Sant at the line for third.
And again, Benefiel, a very smart driver. This late race speed does not surprise me. I would be shocked if Adam Benefiel wasn't sort of conserving tires and playing the long con here, waiting for this race to wind down before he strikes. And that seems to be what we're seeing, because there he goes, right alongside. Whoa, man, oh man, 3 wide for the lead coming through the tri-oval. Cameron Stone able to just barely hold off Bryson. What a move that was, as here comes Van de Sant on the outside of Stone. That's going to put him into P1, and he is clear. New leader number 16, Bryson, trying to get to the bottom of Cameron Stone. Jonathan Delaney has got ahead of all of them, so he's unlapped himself, currently being scored on the lead lap. The battle for the lead's not over, because here comes Cameron Stone slingshotting out of the corner. He's going to get cleared going in, drives it in deep, slides to the outside lane. Van de Sant just barely sneaking it in between him and the wall. That's going to put him back in the lead. So these two constantly trading off the position. It's a revolving door for the lead, and Bryson is right outside waiting to strike, waiting for these guys to make a mistake. Now on the bumper of Cameron Stone, Bryson could be a little bit of a deciding factor here. He could push one of these drivers to the front if he wants to, or he could do what he's doing right now and nearly go 3 wide and just try to claim it for himself. And look at this, Adam Benefiel also joining the party right there in 4th place. All of these drivers on the bumper, and there goes Cameron Stone sideways. Contact from Van de Sant. That's going to allow Bryson to get side by side as Van de Sant drops back to 4th, now trying to pass Benefiel once more. But the battle for the lead not dying, Cody. There goes Bryson to the bottom, Stone up top. Who is going to succeed? Coming out of the corner. Contact! Benefiel turns Hixenbaugh, and he is going to lock up the tires. There's the yellow flag. And this changes everything. Delaney is going to be restarting on the lead lap. Bryson is going to be restarting a little bit further back in the field. And Cameron Stone is going to have to play defense all over again. I'm not even sure who was in the lead at the moment of caution. It was just that close.
This racing is definitely heating up. And that all started a couple laps ago when Cameron Stone got loose coming off the corner, and you just see Adam Benefiel misjudged the corner a little too much and got into the back bumper of Bryson Hixenbaugh. But when Cameron Stone got loose there about 5-6 laps ago, it kind of bunched up the top 4 and provided us with some great racing there, Andre.
Well, it really did. And, you know, in regards to that accident, I can't even really fault Benefiel too much there. He was coming out of the corner. He had a really good run, and he's got Van de Sant behind him, applying a lot of pressure. I'm thinking Benefiel was thinking, if I let off, if I try to steer clear of Hixenbaugh, I'm going to get run over by Van de Sant. And it likely would have happened. Just a little bit of a nudge there sends Hixenbaugh around. And then as Benefiel goes by, look at his bumper. he is practically attached at the wing with that number 16. So a lot of pressure on Benefiel to not lift off the throttle, and unfortunately, just barely clipping Bryson. And I mean, that was really gentle contact, but the reason it resulted in such an extreme spin is where the contact was made. Coming out of turn 2, that shift in banking, Cody, the car already feels a little bit weightless. It already feels a little bit squirrely, and you get just a gentle nudge, and you might find yourself going around.
Yeah, exactly what you just said, Andre. And something else that just happened under the pace lap. There was an incident between Jonathan Delaney and Joe Stafford coming across the line to take the caution. Jonathan Delaney got some heavy contact hitting the outside wall. Not quite sure what happened there, as it looks like Joseph Stafford is apologizing for the contact. But that's going to play a factor now too, because even with Jonathan Delaney on the lead lap, he's going to have some damage to fix. And it looks like we do have a replay booting up here of what happened.
So this is coming to the line. He's got Stanley. Oh, okay. So Stafford was actually already around right there, and Delaney didn't really have much of an opportunity to avoid him. He did have Stanley down beneath him, so he just kind of had to hope that Stafford spun out of the way, and unfortunately, it didn't quite happen that way. Take another look at it coming out of turn 4. Ooh, just a little bit snap loose and overcorrection, and Delaney barely clipping that rear bumper. And you're right, Cody. I think that's going to be some damage to the right front. That was not a gentle impact.
And sorry, mic wasn't working there. But definitely was not some low contact there. And it looks like Bryson Hicksonball is coming off pit road to fix what damage he had. I don't believe he actually hit anything. But with these cars, if they drive anything like from what I've experienced, a nudge like that, it can knock the steering out and make this car troubled to steer. And you may see the car start to crab walk down the straightaways. And you don't want that, Andre. Not at all.
No, you do not want to knock these things out of alignment, especially at a track like Rockingham, where you're kind of already getting thrown around. The track itself just kind of jostles you around the entire time, and when you're trying to fight the steering wheel and figure out where your kind of center of alignment is, it's not a fun time. Not a fun time at all. So getting the car fixed up and coming back out on track, maybe not a bad call. I think he was already kind of starting a little bit further down the grid because the caution didn't come out until a number of cars had gotten around him. So he knew he wasn't really giving up that much track position, wasn't giving up that much time. So he really, no harm, no foul, no reason not to come down pit road. But this is going to be something because we've got Jonathan Delaney and Bryson Hicksonball starting right with one another. Bryson right behind Jonathan Delaney, pretty much rounding out what remains of the field just ahead of Stafford and Stringle. But these two drivers on track and now racing for position. And again, going green here momentarily with only about 10 laps to go, as caution laps do not count, as I mentioned before in this series. So 10 laps for Jonathan Delaney to race his way through the field. He's got to work his way around 3 rows of cars. And with an amazing start, he actually has to stall out his momentum as Stanley kind of blocking the lane that he was trying to shoot up there. 3 wide. Delaney immediately with the aggression. He's going to get to the outside of Latham, and it looks like by the time they get to 3 and 4, he's going to be clear. And we got a battle for second ahead of Jonathan Delaney. While this is all going on, Van de Sant, Miller, and Benefiel all trying to slug it out for second place. And now here goes Benefiel to the outside for the lead. Cameron Stone holding strong to that yellow line. Benefiel with a absolutely perfect corner. I mean, that was textbook through 1 and 2 on the high side. The number 11 machine is to the lead for the first time tonight.
I guess he must have been hearing me up in the booth, Andre, doubting him. And he's gone up there and taken the lead away from the rest of these guys. But something else to take into consideration here, we were mentioning about that points battle between Alex Van de Sant and Jonathan Delaney. Jonathan Delaney's right back on the back bumper of Alex Van de Sant as he's a wall. Man.
Van de Sant really getting stuck on the wall for the entire straightaway. No caution. That's going to put Jonathan Delaney up into 4th, right behind Robert Miller. We're on lap 94 as we have some contact. Latham to the back of the number 4. Both drivers are able to keep it straight. Going into the corner, looks like Latham's going to get a huge run through the corner. That was a beautiful turn by that number 15 machine, and he's going to put John down a position. That might be one of the first time John's ever really been passed on speed alone here as he gets into the wall. I think John's getting desperate for position here, and he is overdriving that thing, Cody.
Yeah, exactly. And something else to take into consideration, now that Jonathan Delaney's ahead, as he's in the wall again right in front of Bryson Hicksonball, he's got a points gap here. He may want to start taking it easy if he wants to win this championship. But just as I say that, as Alex Van de Sant has come down to pit road, so that pretty much eliminates any chance of him making up points on Jonathan Delaney here tonight, as you see Bryson Hicksonball on the quarter panel of Jonathan Delaney here.
Yeah, that's going to be a bad points night for Alex Van de Sant, and unfortunately, I think he made the right call coming down pit road, because he probably had a lot of damage. He didn't just slap the wall; he got stuck on it like he was just super glued to that safer barrier and could not get off of it. So a lot of damage. But Hicksonbaugh around Jonathan Delaney, and then Delaney's going to try to pull the crossover down low. He's going to send it deep on the bottom. We know how this went the first time. Does Jonathan learn his lesson and say, all right, I'm going to take it a little bit easier on the bottom this time? And he does. He's going to cycle in right behind Bryson. And while this battle's going on, the battle for the lead isn't much less exciting because Cameron Stone is still on the bumper of the number 11. I got to be honest, Cody. When Adam Benefiel got out to the lead, I kind of expected him to start driving away with it. But Cameron Stone's putting up a heck of a fight coming out of turn 2 down the straightaway. They're bumper to bumper. And we've only got 2.5 laps remaining as they come through 3 and 4, and it's going to be 99 out of 100 as they cross the stripe. So Cameron's got 2 to go if he's going to make the move. Cameron Stone, obviously a little bit disenfranchised with his performances this year in IROC, and obviously coming into the season with a little bit of frustration from how his last IROC season went. If anybody wants to win in this race, which everybody does, I think Cameron Stone has a little bit more motivation than some of these other guys. So he goes to the top. He's going to try to get a huge run through the tri-oval. Watch this. He's going to close in on the bumper. White flag is in the air. Cameron Stone, again, using that high line. Benefiel blocking the bottom. And Stone's going to fall back in the middle of the corner. But as they come down the straightaway, he's going to slingshot. And as he go to the top, as he go to the bottom, he's going to send it on the bottom. Tries to put the bumper to the 11, but he comes up a little bit short into the outside wall. He's not out of the game yet, but it is going to be Adam Benefiel crossing the line to win the race. Cameron Stone second. Robert Miller sneaks into third place. Timothy Latham, Bryson Hicksonbaugh running out your top 5. And Jonathan Delaney, who, again, was 1 lap down at one point, all the way back up to 4th at the beginning of this stint, finishes in 7th place. So a rough points night for 2 of our really successful points contenders so far. This could shake up the points picture big time, Cody.
Absolutely. And once again, we've been treated to another great race, Andre. These races never fail to disappoint. And Adam Benefiel just came in and showed why he was a former Coke driver, as well as won the championship last year in 100%. So it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say during the interview tonight.
Absolutely, it's going to be interesting for sure. I think most of the top 3 are going to have some stories to tell because it has been a very eventful night. But right there's our official finishing order: Adam Benefiel, Cameron Stone, Robert Miller, Timothy Latham, Bryson Hicksonbaugh, Craig Fryer, Jonathan Delaney, Marshall Stanley, David Stringle, Alex Van de Sant, and Joe Stafford rounding out the field there in 11th. And of course, race control, not racing, but still scored. He's there in 12th. What a race round 3 was, and we're heading into the final week next week with a possible points battle now that some of these drivers have kind of had a bad night. But we're just waiting for some of these drivers to file in for an interview. I'm kind of looking through Discord trying to see if anybody's in there. It looks like, yeah, we do have some drivers in the Discord. They're just not lining up for the interview quite yet. Tell you what, we're going to go to cold mics for a minute for a momentary break as we get these drivers lined up. We'll be right back in a second. Don't go anywhere. We are back, and we got the drivers lined up for some interviews here. We're going to start out with our 3rd place finisher, Robert Miller, to bring him up, see what he has to say. Robert Miller, you got a copy?
I got you.
Well, Robert, that was kind of a tactical race, I'd say, for you. You went out there, you kind of rode right behind the leaders and kind of watched them battle it out. And all the while, you slowly worked your way up the leaderboard. And in the closing laps, you definitely had a shot at it. Walk me through this race.
Considering I've only raced Rockingham twice, I just kind of took a little bit more methodical than I usually do. The first week in Charlotte that I raced, I was being a little more aggressive and I got bit for it. So this one, I just wanted to be cognizant and being aware of what my surroundings are and just be there at the end for once.
Absolutely. Now, from our perspective up in the booth, it looked like this rough track surface was kind of throwing you guys for a loop. You'd go into the corners and come out, and these cars are kind of bouncing all over the place. You're working the steering wheels. What was the track really driving like out there? How'd the cars agree with it?
It was deceptive in how much grip you had and just how much the front wanted to push. That was the big problem we were all fighting. Just the front end was getting just worn out, and you just couldn't push or couldn't drive in the middle. And once you couldn't turn in the middle, you're just going right into the wall if you didn't pay attention. So there's a lot of games going on with running the high line and running the below line and all kinds of stuff and saving tires. There's a lot of fun, a lot of different people doing different stuff.
Definitely looked fun. You guys put on quite a show out there. Obviously getting an IROC podium, pretty solid performance. What does that do for your confidence going into next week in the final race?
Well, we'll give it a shot. I think I kind of liked it in this one. I wasn't as fast as here as I like to be. Like I said, I only raced Rockingham once before this ever. So but next week's a little bit different. It's Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a good race there.
Absolutely. Was there anybody that you would like to shout out or thank for your performance?
Yeah, shout out to Altus, Logitech G Altus Esports. That's my new team now, and I appreciate them taking me in, and I'm having a great year now. I'm having real fun. So thanks to them.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Robert, and good luck next week.
Yes, sir.
Third place finisher Robert Miller out of the booth. We're going to go ahead and bring up Cameron Stone. He's with Cody Bird.
Cameron Stone, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
All right, Cam. So walk us through the beginning of that race there for you. It looked like early on you got out to a pretty good start and was able to control the early portion of the race. What was your game plan going into this race?
Game plan going in the race was just get as many points as I could. I just tried to get up front there and get some of those lap lead bonuses. And hadn't been a good season so far, but we've got probably outside of a shot to win the championship. But if we could pick up some bonuses and some good finishes on the way home, we could get up to third or fourth in the standings, which would be fine with me. So I was just trying to lead some laps there and burnt the right front off of it, and Bryson got around me, and Bryson's always been better at saving tires than I am. I don't know how him and Adam do it, but yeah, he got around me and then started stretching it out. So I just started trying to save it as much as I could. I went for the old Cody Bird strategy, and it actually worked tonight because once I got on pit roads when the caution come out, and by default, since caution laps don't count around here, it made me the de facto leader with the freshest tires in the field. So thanks for giving me the idea there, Cody.
You are always more than welcome with that idea. Now, of course, you saw the battle between Bryson Hixenball and Jonathan Delaney forming behind you. Did you think anything was going to happen between the two of them, which ultimately resulted in the caution that helped you out?
I didn't think it was going to happen the way it did, but whenever them two get around each other, you're always bound to see something, some sparks flying or somebody climbing the grandstands or something. But yeah, I figured something was going to happen. That's why, like I said, I stayed out as long as I did on them tires. I actually, when I came down pit road and took the tires off, I checked the percentages on them, and my right front had been blown for probably 8 laps. I was just out there riding around. So yeah, I figured there was going to be a caution, and I was hoping it would come out, right when I was going to pit road or right when I got off, and it fell at the perfect time for me.
Absolutely. And now walk us through that last run there that you had at Adam Benefiel going for the lead. What was your plan there coming to the checkered flag? Well,
interesting enough, I didn't put enough gas in the car for that last caution we had. So, while we're coasting around under caution, I was burning fuel that I actually needed to finish the race. And Adam got a run on me coming off of 2. And I knew he was going to take it high in 3 and 4, but I had to save the fuel to even have a chance to finish. So I was just clutching going into corners, and he got above me and got around me going around the outside in 3 and 4. And I just decided it's probably better fuel mileage wise to just sit behind him and draft and keep clutching in the corners. So that whole last 10 laps right there, I was clutching. And we got the white flag. I took her up high on 1 and 2. Tried to get that run down the back stretch, which I got. Tried to deke him, fake him out going into 3 and 4, and just didn't have enough tire to hold it out of the wall. And as soon as I come off the wall and hit the gas, it started sputtering and started falling back to Robert, who was back there in third. So real glad that he didn't overtake us there. That would have felt pretty bad. But yeah, we was running out of gas in the last 10 laps, so that was fun.
Now, of course, would you like to thank anybody here who may have been watching you tonight, or any sponsors?
Yeah, I think Mom and Dad are watching tonight. I was practicing with Dad earlier. He's supposed to be running the tryout race for 100% tomorrow, so trying to get him ready for that. So appreciate them watching and supporting. Got a buddy of mine from work's been watching these races, 2 of them actually. So Chris and Cody, if you guys are watching, appreciate y'all. All my make-believe sponsors that I'm gonna have in the 100% Cup Series. Hope I'm making y'all proud out here. And thank you boys for putting on some good broadcasts. I listened to you last week, Cody. You getting pretty good.
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence there, Cam, and we wish you luck the rest of the season.
Appreciate it.
And that was our second place finisher, Cameron Stone, and I'll pass it off to Andre to interview our winner tonight, Adam Benefiel.
Thank you, Cody. We're going to see if we can't bring up that number 11 driver. Let's get him in here. Adam Benefiel, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, Adam, I've always kind of viewed you as the kind of guy who plays it smart. You know, you kind of put yourself in the catbird seat, and when it matters, you kick it into overdrive, and you get that late race speed. That is exactly what you did tonight. In these closing laps, you kicked it into overdrive. You muscled your way to the front. Walk me through this race, man.
I mean, basically, what it boils down to is I'm the best there is. Like, I'll wake up and I piss excellence. So, no, it's this this track, and it's like Atlanta. It's rough on tires, and that's always something I've been really good at, is kind of saving my stuff and being there long run. So it's, this race played out to where it was kind of right up my alley, and I did some testing with different things in practice, kind of seeing what the fall off was between 2 tires and 4 and all that good stuff. But we stuck with 4, and we just sat there and ran our pace. Like, man, I stayed about 23.5s, 23.6s, and the pack pulled away. But it was just like what happened. I mean, they started backing up to me, and I never really changed my pace. So after pit stops went down and we come back out, like it just worked out to where Bryson's terrible on pit lane entry, and we were all able to get right back together. So I was expecting Cam to be in the catbird seat. I didn't realize he was that bad at math, and but apparently he is. So that helped out, and I know I just waited for the opportunity. Honest to God, I just tried to sit there and be patient, and because like in practice, man, I did 4 or 5 hard laps, and I was 5% wear more on the right front than what I was on the right rear. So I was just trying to be patient, waiting for the right time to make a move.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we had a couple of drivers kind of mention the car felt a little tight, like the front end just wasn't gripping. It was kind of washing up the track. How'd the car feel from your perspective? I mean, was it difficult to muscle that thing around the track?
No, actually, if anything, I felt like I was a little free. That's why I stuck with what I went with. Like, the pace. That's one thing I was practicing, or I was messing with in practice. If you actually baby it for about 10, 15 laps, the characteristics of the car actually flip, and you actually go where you're leaning on the right rear more. So I think that was why I was able to get such good runs off the corner, and I had so much tire left at the end to blow the door panels off Cam Stone.
Absolutely. Blew the doors off him indeed. And now I got to ask, Adam, you going to go in the next week and make it 2 for 2?
I mean, I hope. I like Atlanta. It's a fun track. I definitely think it'll be a lot like Charlotte, and I didn't really hold anything back at Charlotte. I mean, I was driving it for everything it's worth, and I hope so. This one right here, was for my buddy Kevin Steele. I gotta whip up on Cody after this interview's over with, but no, I don't know. Hopefully we can, man. I'm just doing this to have fun. I don't think I'm anywhere near the points deal after my episode last week at a road course.
We'll just pretend Lime Rock didn't happen, but congratulations on the win. Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
God for giving me this natural born talent of being a wheelman. D and Kevin for putting this on. You guys for letting me come in here and act cocky, and all the guys at Team Conti for supporting me. We signed back with WR1, so thanks to those guys. Back on the box for Conti this year with Junior Motorsports. So happy to we're staying home. Thanks to all those guys, and I don't know, man. Hopefully we cap off Atlanta with a win, and then we start looking at trying to go back-to-back championships next year.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to seeing what you can do, and thanks for your time, Adam, and good luck next week.
Thanks, bud.
Race winner out of the booth. That's pretty much going to do it for our post-race coverage. What are some of your closing thoughts there, Cody?
That this series just continues not to disappoint, Andre. Every week in and week out, we're presented with some great racing. I mean, last week, obviously, with it being a road course, we weren't really sure what to expect, and we were presented with a great race, and we were told this race it was going to be strung out single file racing, and I would say that this week was anything but that, Andre.
Absolutely. It was an exciting race from flag to flag. But that's going to do it for us here at Through Wide TV. I'm Andre Graham Bush, joined alongside Cody Bird, and of course, Carlos Acosta, the man pushing the buttons, bringing all the action to your TVs and computers. We will see you next week for the season finale of IROC at Atlanta.